At the end of Canto 1, we saw Belinda getting ready to face her day, putting on her makeup or her armor, and setting out to prepare herself for traveling to her daily events. And Canto 2 picks up with where Canto 1 leaves off, and Belinda is traveling on the Thames River barge. She is going from her house to Hampton Court, assumably to a kind of event, a social event where there's card playing and dancing. But nevertheless, in Canto 2, Pope highly praises the beauty of Belinda, and he does that by comparing her to the sun. And he writes that the way the sun rises with all its splendor in the sky and throws its crimson radiance over the ocean, Belinda, in the same way, Belinda competes in brightness with the sun. And like the sun, she comes out of her house with great splendor and gets into a boat and sails upon the surface of the silver bright water of the river Thames. And I think that is an interesting, this metaphor, this comparison of Belinda to the sun is super interesting. One, because, with the past century and the discoveries, scientific discoveries and things like that, we find out that the sun is the center of our solar system, and our planets and the celestial bodies of the world revolve around the sun. And so too, Belinda is that kind of center of the universe. She is the center of attention. She is above everyone. And she, like, the world stop. I mean, like, you guys have heard of people who they say that sun shines out of their very being. They can do no wrong, right? And Belinda is just that kind of person. So beautiful ladies and finely dressed young women glitter even brighter around her. The eyes of everyone are fixed only on her, and she is described as wearing a glittering cross on her bosom. And Pope says that even Jews or non-Christians, others who do not believe in the divine quality of Christ, would have worshipped that cross because of the beautiful breast on which it shines. Her beautiful graces are proof of her alert mind, which is as quick in her eyes and as unstable as her glances. So it's very interesting that, like I said, she is described in this kind of almost divine quality. So while she's on this boat, she gives a smile to everybody, but doesn't pay particular or special attention to anyone. And and no one really takes offense to the fact that she has this kind of aloof air. She rejects the advances of a man, and whoever looks at her is so dazzled by the brightness of her eyes, as a person would be dazzled by the light of the sun. And according to Pope, Belinda's eyes shine uniformly on all around her, just as the sun shines in an impartial manner over all. So he continues with this metaphor for a little while. But interestingly enough, he says, yet graceful ease and sweetness void of pride, her ease, her manner, might hide her faults, if bells had faults to hide. If to her shame some female errors fall, look on her face and you'll forget them all. So he's basically saying, if she were not perfect, if she had any flaws, and of course she's human, she has flaws, all you have to do is look at her and those flaws are forgotten. She's so beautiful. So in addition, her beauty, like the sun, this kind of comparison. In addition to that, we also in this canto get a description of what Pope calls Belinda's weapon. These two ringlets of hair, and this nymph, the there's that element, there's that machinery again. This nymph to the destruction of mankind nourished two locks which gracefully hung behind in equal curls, and well conspired to deck with shining ringlets her smooth ivory neck. Love in these labyrinths his slaves detain, and mighty hearts are held in slender chains. With hairy springes we the birds betray, slight lines of hair surprise the finny prey. Fair tresses man's imperial race ensnare, and beauty draws us with a single hair. So these two curls that hang from Belinda's neck, they make her extra hot. They wreck the peace of mind of men, and it seems that these locks with their bright ringlets have an agreement with each other to embellish Belinda's the finery that is her neck. Men who look at her would have been captured by those and kept as prisoners in the maze of her hair. Even if they have strong hearts, then also they become the victim of the charm of her delicate hair. So he even goes on to say, like in those lines, that we catch birds with traps and fish with fishing lines. And similarly, men are caught in the trap of this woman's fair curls. A beautiful woman can attract a man with a single hair. And I think that here Pope is kind of tongue-in-cheek playing on this obsession with beauty and superficiality. But this is Belinda's kind of secret weapon. This is how she attracts all of the men, entangles them in her snares, so to speak. After we have this description of Belinda on the Thames River, we get an introduction to our kind of antagonist of the poem, the adventurous Baron. And the Baron, of course, is modeled after this Lord Petrie, and he, the Baron, admires Belinda's bright locks. He longs for them. He's filled with an ambition to possess this treasure and to carry out his purpose, like this idea. And I think it's interesting, like this idea of possession and objectification of Belinda as a woman is kind of interesting. It's not about, anything but what he can kind of acquire as this objectified treasure. But I digress. To carry out this kind of purpose of getting these two curls, he's ready to rob Belinda of them. And I want to talk really quickly about this passage where we have the adventurous Baron, the bright locks admired, he saw, he wished, and to prize aspired. Resolved to win, he meditates the way, by force to ravish, or by fraud betray. So by hook or crook, he wants this hair. He wants to conquest Belinda, and this kind of force or fraud, he's either going to take it against her will or fool her into giving it. And this, he says, for success a lover's toil attends. Few ask if fraud or force attains its ends. So nobody really cares, or he doesn't care, as long as he gets it. And in order to achieve that goal, we get another kind of inversion of this epic tradition of a sacrifice. And this is where we have the Baron's sacrifice. He builds this altar to love. He says, but chiefly love, to love an altar build. And he builds this altar of 12 vast French romances neatly gilt. There lay 3 garters, half a pair of gloves, and all the trophies of his former loves, With tender billet dough he lights the pyre, and breathes 3 amorous sighs to raise the fire. Then prostrate falls and begs with ardent eyes soon to obtain and long possess the prize. The powers gave ear and granted half his prayer. The rest the winds dispersed into empty air. So we have this sacrifice that of the Baron, and he prays to every heavenly power, but chiefly to love. On which he builds, and I think it's interesting to point out that he has 12 romance novels, 3 garters, a glove, and trophies from his former loves. That everything from all these other women that he has taken advantage of, and I don't want to say take advantage of, but all of these other women that he has been involved with, which gives us the implication that the Baron is this kind of player. He's weasel-like. He's a libertine or a rake, and not necessarily husband material. He's not someone that Belinda should entertain in any kind of regard. And I'm interested to see what you guys think. Do you think that this is in some way answering one of Pope's questions that he asks us in the invocation? Why indeed would this maid reject the suitor? And of course, if we look at someone who's described in the description that the way the Baron is that the Baron is presented here, of course, wouldn't you? I don't know. I think that this is kind of answering that for itself. He's not a good dude. So, as Belinda is sitting on this river and the Baron is contemplating these thoughts of the 2 locks of hair, his possession of Belinda, Ariel, is kind of moody. He's invisibly accompanied Belinda, and all the while he's watching the goings on around, he's thinking of the approaching misfortune, this kind of warning that he has given. He doesn't know what's going to happen. So we get at the end of this canto a long speech about that Ariel makes, because he is thinking about this misfortune, and to kind of mitigate that, he wants to take necessary precautions, and to do that he summons his fellow spirits. Ariel is perched on the mast or the post of the boat, while his fellow spirits form a circle around him, and then he addresses these sylphs, right? And he tells them the reason for why they have been summoned. He reminds them that now is the time to do their duty and look after the welfare of beautiful ladies. Some of the jobs that they have to do include save the powder from the cheeks of beautiful ladies from being blown away by the wind, save the bottled perfumes from evaporating, curl the ladies to blush more effectively. And in other words, right, he says, do what you're supposed to do, but more particularly, he changes from reminding them of doing their jobs to say, this day black omens threat the brightest fair that ever deserved a watchful spirit's care. He's saying, Belinda is in danger. And I think it's interesting to unpack what he says in regards to his warning to the sylphs. He says, some dire disaster, or by force of sleight, but what or where the fates have wrapped in night. So he says something is going to happen, but I don't know what. Whether the nymph shall break Diana's law, or some frail china jar receive a flaw, or stain her honor or her new brocade, forget her prayers or miss a masquerade, or lose her heart or a necklace at a ball, or whether heaven has doomed that shock must fall. Haste then, ye spirits, to your charge repair the fluttering fan, Zephreta's care. The drops to thee brilliant we consign, and Momentilla let the watch be thine. Do thou, Crispissa, tend her favorite lock, Ariel himself shall be the guard of shock. So essentially what we have here is he's saying, I don't know what's going to happen. She can lose her virginity or a china jar should fall. She could have a loss of honor or her clothes could be ruined. She could forget her prayers or forget a ball. She could lose her heart or lose her jewelry. Or, heaven forfend, shock, her lapdog dies. So I think it's interesting that what we have here in his warning is this kind of this emphasis on order and the importance of things, and how we have this serious juxtaposed to the trivial. What's more important, the loss of her honor or the dirtying of her clothes? That she forget her prayers or miss a ball? And it's like that these people have got their priorities all out of whack. And in order to mitigate that, he gives Zephreta one of the spirits. She's meant to take care of her earrings. One of them is to take care of her watch. Another one is supposed to tend the lock of her hair. And of course, Ariel is going to take the most important job of guarding over her lapdog. And I think that this mention of fate that we have in this warning is that the danger to Belinda is unavoidable. And it's almost like, I don't know, and you guys can tell me, which do you think would she rather have happen? These kind of invisible in some way travesties, or these outward ones that I mean, you can obviously tell if someone's clothes are ruined versus the loss of their honor. And in which do you think Belinda would be more upset about? And I think that therein lies the problem for Pope, and that's kind of what he's making fun of here. Ariel goes on to say that whatever spirit careless of his charge his post neglects or leaves the fair at large shall feel sharp vengeance soon, or take his sins, be stopped in vials, or transfixed with pins, or plunged in lakes of bitter washes lie, or wedged whole ages in bodkin's eye. And that's kind of another word for a blunt needle, but suffice to say that Ariel says that if he warns the sylphs that they will be punished if they do not follow his instructions. So they ultimately, at the end of this canto, surround Belinda in circles to form this kind of protective shield around her. They become this kind of bodyguard for her. And the act of Belinda decorating herself with beauty aid like puffs, powders, patches, and all of that are really the subject of the satire here, because it shows that the chief preoccupation of these ladies is in their appearance or looks, by which they'll attract young people like the Baron, who are ultimately no good. I think that that is the most important thing to kind of take away from this canto, this idea that Belinda is so beautiful. The Baron wants her and has sacrificed all of his other lovers in order to possess her. And this speech by Ariel, where he really shows us this juxtaposition of the serious versus the trivial. So stay tuned, and I'll finish up with Canto 3.